Hello, today I'm going to be showing my Clojure project for you guys. So let's get started. First of all, I did use Line Engine for my project so I could import a few dependencies that I wouldn't otherwise be able to import easily anyway. And my project essentially is calling a weather API and getting a GET request and parsing through a JSON file to display text to a user. So the libraries that I am requiring for this project are just the normal Clojure string, just to join a list of arguments into a string. I'm using java.io for files. I'm accessing my API key, which I put in a file to keep it more secure. And I'm using the CLJ HTTP client to get to do the GET request for the API call. And I'm using Cheshire to parse through the JSON file. So let's get into my code. Here I am essentially I'm defining where my API key is in my directories. This is a default city that I set, and then here is my main function. So I'm just doing a let start here to define the URL. Essentially, this is just the base text for the URL, and it's getting arguments from the command line when it's called with line run. And if that argument list is not empty, then it will join those arguments into a string separated by spaces. And it will put that in for the city for the API call. Then what I'm doing here is I'm doing something called a slurp to get the data straight out of my file that has my API key in it, and it converts it right into a string, and I'm just adding that at the end of my URL to make the API call. I'm then setting this weather JSON to this GET request, and I'm making sure that I'm getting that as a JSON file. And then in this let below, I am parsing through the JSON file. And if you want to see sort of more what that looks like, I have an API call just put through the browser here, and you can sort of see what that looks like when you make that API call, the sort of data that you'll get. So this is sort of formatted. The raw data is more like this. You can also pretty print and sort of see better like which sections have what information. But essentially, let's get this smaller. What I'm doing here is I'm parsing through, and I'm using this let to define some temporary variables that I'm going to use when I print out the string so the user can see the data that's been, parsed. So well, let's run it, and I'll show you guys how it works. So we can just do a line run, and what that's going to do, if I don't put any extra command line arguments in, it's just going to use the default Rexburg. So if I do a line run, and this takes a second or two, there you go. So in Rexburg it is 47.5 degrees Fahrenheit with clear sky, and that's just how the API is, and 4.61 mile per hour winds. So, for example, if we want to take advantage of those command line arguments, we can go ahead and say line run, but let's say Los Angeles instead of just the default. And it gives us the information. Looks like it's actually really nice over there right now. But it works for any city in the world that you can think of, like my hometown, Gresham, Oregon. If I put that in, and I run it, it'll get the data. But you guys can feel free to use this if you would like. You'll have to get your own API key, but I did put it in a public GitHub repo, so you guys can have access to this code and you guys can play with it if you want. And I have some instructions here that you guys can follow to get it working for yourself. And yeah, just so you guys can mess around with it. But yeah, thanks for watching, and I hope that you guys enjoyed.